This difficult to get to and remote gravel pass is well worth the effort of seeking it out. It's a long pass at 14 kilometers and offers high views of deeply incised and heavily wooded valleys, several Transkei villages and the crossing of the powerful Mbashe River. Perhaps more importantly, it's also the access road to the birthplace of Nelson Mandela at Mbashe village on the eastern rim of the Mbashe River Canyon. He was buried near Kunu, a short distance from Mbashe. The pass has a typical inverted profile with a low point in the middle and contains 101 bends, corners and curves to keep drivers very busy. 10 of those are sharper than 90 degrees. With gradients that get as steep as 1 in 6, this will be a tricky drive in wet weather if you're not in a four-wheel drive vehicle. As is the general rule in this part of the Eastern Cape, most of the area is unfenced, so finding livestock on the road is the norm. Add in slow vehicles, taxis, rutted, potholed and corrugated roads, and you have a recipe for having to stay wide awake on this pass. Starting in the north, the road begins descending along the western side of a deeply wooded ravine, which spans a width of about 1.5 kilometers. On the right, colourful homes and huts dot the hillsides, and on the left the views are devoid of human life as steep valleys forge their way via countless streams towards the main river that bisects the valley and forms a confluence with the Mbashe River near the bridge crossing. The Mbashe River flows in a southeasterly direction and has a catchment area of 6,030 square kilometers. The river drains into the Indian Ocean through an estuary located near the lighthouse at Mbashe. In 1554, the Portuguese ship Sao Bento ran aground at the mouth of the Mbashe River. The ordeal of 322 of its survivors, who walked from there to Lorenzo Marques, presently Maputo, has been recorded. Mbashe is a village on the banks of the Mbashe River where Nelson Mandela was born in 1918. The Donald Woods Centre is 1 hour from Mbashe, where Nelson Mandela was born, and Kunu, where he's been laid to rest. It is in Obeni in the Xhosa area of Mbashe Subdistrict, Eastern Cape. The centre is 10 kilometres inland from the Mbashe River mouth in the heart of Bomvana land. This is just a few kilometres from the second largest single forest in South Africa, the Dwazakwebe Forest Nature Reserve, which includes stunning beaches, fishing, hiking, birdwatching and waterfalls. The entire Eastern Cape area is malaria-free. The DWC is a living memorial to Donald and Wendy Woods, serving some of the poorest and least developed communities of the Eastern Cape. The main purpose of the centre includes a base or headquarters of the Donald Woods Foundation, situated in the heart of the program area. It also includes a training centre, community and resource centre for nodal development, and can be used by NGOs, universities, companies and other bodies for conferencing, training and meeting facilities. On the day of filming, this part of the descent was incredibly slippery and our camera vehicle actually slid off the road, but we recovered it fairly quickly. Initially the gradients are quite steep at 1 in 6, but soon ease off after 1 kilometre. Be careful at the 1.8 kilometre mark where there's a prominent fork. Make sure you keep left here, as the right hand fork will take you along a very long drive which ends in a cul-de-sac. This fork is followed by a sharp S-bend, whereafter the gradients get very steep once more. Here you can see another 4x4 descending the same section in four-wheel drive and in low range. If you intend driving this pass, do not drive it after heavy rain unless you're in a four-wheel drive vehicle. The collywobbles are a quite extraordinary set of curves in the meander of the Mbashe River near Elliottdale. The place got its name when Lieutenant George Pomeroy Colley, Special Magistrate for the Transkei, saw the view before him and exclaimed, "How that river wobbles!" "Yes, sir," replied a member of staff. "In fact, it collywobbles." Today there's a guest house there still using this name, plus a local supply store. Located in the heart of the collywobbles is a small hydroelectric plant with 3 turbine units, each providing 14 megawatts of power to the local grid. The sheer cliffs of the Mbashe Gorge on the Mbashe River play host to a colony of Cape vultures who have apparently lived and bred here since the late 1890s. The colony in this far and remote corner of the Transkei has been known to support up to 300 breeding pairs. But on average you'll spot about 200 individuals across 13 separate cliffs where they build their nests, particularly on Main, Msikiti and Ledger cliffs. It's still a large colony and spectacular at that, the cliffs soaring up above you. The vultures use the rural grasslands and woodlands south of Mthatha, but rely on the high cliffs for breeding. The Cape vulture, which is listed as vulnerable, this colony has probably survived here as long as it has because of its position in amongst the rural landscape south of Elliot Dale. Where the colony chose to live in amongst the cliffs, the Mbashe River flows in a series of sharp, convoluted twists that is quite something to see. The area is really beautiful, the scenery breathtaking, but to reach it takes a concerted effort. This area known as the Collywobbles, and you'll find the colony roughly 5 kilometers from the Collywobble store, which also stocks some basic supplies. A bird hide erected by the Amatola district municipality is now unfortunately in ruins. The Xhosa people are an Nguni-affiliated ethnic group whose traditional homeland is primarily the Cape provinces of South Africa. They are the second largest race group in the country and are native speakers of the isiXhosa language. Presently, approximately 8 million Xhosa people are distributed across the country, and the Xhosa language is South Africa's second most populous home language after Zulu. The pre-1994 system of apartheid and Bantustans suspended the Xhosa South African citizenship but assigned them to have self-governing homelands, namely Transkei and Ciskei, now both part of the Eastern Cape province where most of the Xhosa remain. With the settlement of the Cape by Europeans in 1652, the native populations were gradually pushed eastwards until, in the 1700s, the borders of the Cape colony had pushed populations far enough east, with relations between colonist and native significantly broken down, to create a critical mass of hostile population to resist the colonists in the Eastern Cape. This sparked off the Cape Frontier Wars, which represent some of the longest military resistance to colonialism. The historical end result would be the containment of large portions of the Cape native population into native reserves in the easternmost part of the Cape. However, these populations would also continually serve as the labour inside the Cape colony. These native reserves would be rebranded homelands in the 20th century and would only be fully dismantled in 1994, with populations moving back into the wider Cape area. In the 19th century, the Xhosas fought and repulsed many tribes that were escaping the Zulus in Natal. This was during the historical Mfakani period. Those who were accepted were assimilated into the Xhosa cultural way of life and followed Xhosa traditions. To this day, the descendants of the Amahomfangu are part of the Xhosa people, and they speak isiXhosa and practice the Xhosa culture. Xhosa unity and ability to fight off colonial encroachment was to be weakened by the famines and political divisions that followed the cattle-killing movement of 1856 to 1858. Historians now view this movement as a millennialist response, both directly to a lung disease spreading amongst the Xhosa cattle at the time, and less directly to the stress to Xhosa society caused by the continuing loss of their territory and autonomy. Some historians argue that this early absorption into the wage economy is the ultimate origin of the long history of trade union membership and political leadership amongst Xhosa people. That history manifests itself today in high degrees of Xhosa representation in the leadership of the ANC. On the day of filming, as we approached the last village on the northern side of the river, we came across a local minibus taxi stuck in the mud. We offered to assist and towed the hapless vehicle onto solid ground, much to the delight of the local people. Be sure to watch part 2, which covers the crossing of the Mbashe River, as well as the entire southern ascent.